Hello, my name is Christy Valentine, and I am doing my Prezi on differentiated instruction and why it's so important to use within the classroom, especially in today's society. So, what is differentiated instruction? I ended up deciding to look up the dictionary definition to differentiated instruction. And what I read was it is the way in which a teacher anticipates and responds to a variety of students' needs in the classroom. So doing this is done in a ton of different ways. Differentiated instruction is a huge way to make sure each student is getting the tailored instruction that they need in order to be successful within the classroom. This means finding resources and tools to give them in order to individualize their instruction, making sure that each student is able to have academic achievement, progress in a way that is the best way for them. And the best way to do this is by finding the specific resources that are needed in order for each individual student to be successful. And teachers work really hard to do this, so that way they know each of their students is getting what they need. Differentiated instruction is huge, and we just want to make sure each and every student feels as though they are being successful and given the right tools to do so. So how do teachers differentiate instruction? Like I said, there's a ton of different ways, but there were two different terms that we saw that kind of talk about differentiated instruction. And that was RTI, which is response to intervention. So this is giving students that intervention and then seeing what the response to that is. So if they're progressing because of the intervention, or if maybe they need something else or a different intervention altogether. So RTI is important, and knowing which intervention to give them, which resources to give each student. MTSS is multi-tiered system of supports, and we watched a couple of videos about this in which students are put into different tiers based on the supports that they need. So there might be a tier 2 or a tier 3 in which students are given just a little bit more support in the subject area. So in both models, teachers use many different resources, whether that's technology or just different ways of talking about the lesson or the problem that they're trying to do. And this is something that we can do within the classroom with teachers, professionals, paras, special education. Everyone together can do this. So how do teachers prepare their students in their classrooms for differentiated instruction? So one thing is by making sure that they have the resources available within the classroom. This is making sure that they have technology that can be utilized for the students who need a little bit of extra support. It's MacBooks, iPads, even calculators can be a system of support. Also by indicating which students need to be where. This is a continuous thing that needs to happen. Students grow and progress continuously throughout the year. So indicating which tier a student is in is also an important way to get your classroom where it needs to be, and making sure that as a student grows that it's being shown within their differentiated instruction as well. Also, we want to create a place within the classroom, whether that's a small area in the corner or a small room, maybe somewhere in the hallway at a table, that the teacher can work with these students and the students be able to feel safe in asking questions that they might not understand, or just that they're not feeling as though they're targeted as a specific group of people because they don't know the subject area. We want to make them feel safe, and that we're just trying to give them a little bit of extra support to help them to understand. We want to give them, like it says on my Prezi, a positive teacher, student, and content relationship. So making them feel successful and not that they're any less than any other student. So what does differentiated instruction look like in the classroom? So the first thing that we do in the classroom is we give one lesson to the whole class. So that's the 20 22 students are learning the same thing, going through the motions as it would be for each student instructionally. Then when students do their autonomous work, teachers can pull specific tiers out to work with. So that would be groups 2 and 3, or tiers 2 and 3, whatever it may be, to get specific instruction to assist with whatever subject that they're doing. So whether that's math, reading, just giving them extra support that might be needed to complete the problem that they're on or the lesson that they're doing. So they can then do this in groups. But then we also have resources that are technological that can assess where students are at in their grade level academically and give them specific problem sets through the technology that can also help build their academic success more on their level rather than just Common Core or standardized in a standardized way. So it's very specific to them. Then they should be assessed as time goes on throughout the year on what should be changed in the future, if they need more instruction, if they need more support, or if they're progressing really great and are on level with the rest of their class, then maybe we take some of that support away, let them be more independent than they maybe were in the tiers. Teachers also have to work together with, paras, special education with each other, because, there only might be a couple students in your class who may need to get some more differentiated instruction. So by pulling groups from even different classes and they can work together, making sure you're on the same page with all these different professionals is a huge part of what it should look like. And then, so why don't common classroom principles work within a classroom of students? So each student, like I've said before, has a very different way of learning. Students are very independent in the way that they understand things, the way things that make sense to them. This even goes out through life. I mean, in college, even, it was really hard for me to sit through lectures because that's just not how I learned. Also, students may excel in one area and may really struggle within another, and so we have to understand that this can be really hard on a student to understand something so well, but then maybe not so much in another area. So we need to make sure we are continuously assessing where a student is at in order to give them the resources and tools they need to progress to where they want to be academically and feel like they're being successful within the classroom. And also, just a class of 22 students, it's impossible to imagine that they're all going to understand things the same way. So we have to make sure that we are looking at each student and tailoring the way we're trying to help in every way we can to make sure every student is feeling like they are getting what they need. So an example of a common classroom principle is delivering instruction primarily by lecturing. This really doesn't help with students because students may really need hands-on learning and specific instruction. I know for me when I was younger, I could not just sit and listen to instruction. I needed it to be shown to me. I needed to get my hands on something. I needed maybe even it to be retold to me on one-on-one level. Also, lecturing gets boring and students may have trouble focusing. A lot of students, have focusing issues, especially younger students. So lecturing isn't the best way to deliver that instruction. Also, students who struggle may feel embarrassed or uncomfortable asking for help or questions in a lecture setting. These students are already feeling uncomfortable because they aren't as knowledgeable on that subject area. So putting them in an environment where they have to answer questions or ask questions in front of their class may be even more difficult for them, and then they get even more behind because they don't feel comfortable asking these questions. So what we can do is, again, assess where students are at, put them in groups that make them feel comfortable, and giving them instruction that works for that group specifically. Another classroom our common classroom principle is grouping the students at the beginning of the year based on the previous year's achievement test scores. Now this doesn't work because it doesn't account for growth since the year before. Students are always growing, learning, even if it's over the summer. We need to constantly assess where a student is at. This means like even after a group meeting, seeing if they've grown or progressed, keeping that data, making sure we know if we need to push more support on them or, pull back. Also, students may not be on the same level based on a certain assessment. So we might see that, these 3 students scored about the same on a test, but they may not understand instruction in the same way. So standardized testing definitely doesn't, I don't think, relates to where a student should be based on differentiated instruction. That's something that we have to continuously do in the classroom. So that's what I kind of said with what we can do, because growth and learning is constantly changing. We just need to be making sure that we are constantly seeing where those students are at now and not previously. And lastly, another common classroom principle is giving bonus points for classroom participation. Now this really makes students who are struggling feel uncomfortable and they kind of feel obligated to participate, but then it sets them back even further because they feel like they have to do it, but a lot of times they're not understanding, the lesson that's being given to them at that time. So making it seem as though they have to participate when they need a differentiated instruction before they can do this isn't technically fair to them. I think that it's fair to give positive acknowledgement to all students who are participating. I think that definitely any time a student is participating, they should be acknowledged for that. And I think especially students who, struggle within that area, making sure they know that you see that they're, progressing and feeling comfortable within that subject area. That's definitely a great thing that we can do. We can encourage that participation all day long. But we don't want to make these students feel obligated because it puts so much pressure on them to participate even though they're struggling in that subject. We want to make sure that all students feel comfortable within that subject area and not making them feel any lesser because they're not participating. As long as a student is progressing and being successful in the classroom, doing their best, then that student should feel like they're being successful and not any lesser than any of the other students. So yeah, definitely differentiated instruction should be used throughout the classroom, and it should only become more and more focused on as time goes on. Making sure that students get the resources they need at the beginning of the year, so that way at the end of the year they can be closer to where they should be on grade level. And making sure they feel comfortable and successful is so very important. So yeah, I think differentiated instruction is extremely important and should be used in the classroom daily. Thank you.